Dr. Kiana Scott, have you been waiting for this moment for a while?
Oh, it feels so good to finally be here. Absolutely. Yeah, this is a good morning. What a night. Oh,
What a night. Let's start right here. Okay, I got last minute of Hillary Clinton's speech from last night queued up here. All right.
I see the freedom to look our children in the eye and say, in America, you can go as far as your hard work and talent will take you, and mean it. And you know what? On the other side of that glass ceiling is Kamala Harris raising her hand and taking the oath of office as our 47th President of the United States.
Getting chills here, getting chills.
Because, my friends, when a barrier falls for one of us, it falls. It falls and clears the way for all of us. So for the next 78 days, we need to work harder than we ever have. We need to beat back the dangers that Trump and his allies pose to the rule of law and our way of life. Don't get distracted or complacent. Talk to your friends and neighbors. Volunteer. Be proud champions for the truth and for the country that we all love. I want my grandchildren and their grandchildren to know I was here at this moment, that we were here, and that we were with Kamala Harris every step of the way. This is our time, America. This is when we stand up. This is when we break through. The future is here. It's in our grasp. Let's go win it.
Okay. My gosh. Oh my gosh. That's an iconic moment right there.
so David, who cried more during that speech? Tim Walz or you, do you think?
Wallace started crying at like 9 Central Time and cried for like 4 hours. But my God, just watching it again tonight, Kiana. I'm sorry, this morning. Watching it again this morning. She hit so many themes in that 2-minute riff right there. And I'm so happy for her. So happy.
And you could tell that everyone in that auditorium was so just delighted to see her and to celebrate her and to see her receive that love and celebration. You know, she took a couple of beats at various times throughout the speech. First, when she walked in and they didn't let her start speaking for
Oh,
almost 2 minutes. And
yes.
she just had a moment to bask in that and hold that. I think that was really a moving moment, unexpectedly,
I agree.
for me.
It was like just she's like that Sally Fields moment at the Oscars 30,
Uh-huh.
40 years ago. You really
Yeah,
love me. You like me,
yeah,
or you
yeah,
right?
yeah. This
And
was this was such a celebration of her, and she knew that, and she held that and created space for that in her speech as she built her speech rhetorically. She really did create space for that adoration and for that love and for some funny moments, which we can get to. But she then turned it into a moment for Kamala Harris. This wasn't a speech about Hillary Clinton. This was Hillary
yeah,
Clinton trailblazer holding a door open for Kamala Harris trailblazer. And that is just so cool to see. Because we're not used to seeing, well, for a number of reasons, it's so cool to see. But one of them is that we're not really used to seeing women in leadership positions, hold the door open for women who are attaining leadership positions in this particular setting. A lot of the women who have spoken at conventions, and I'll specify Democratic national conventions, have been spouses or have held independent elected office. They haven't been sort of creating space for someone to follow in their footsteps and succeed past where they went. So this was just so cool. I mean, a real passing of the mantle to the next generation.
So it's August 20th today. It's 8:30 in the morning, Pacific time, and it's the day after the first night of the Democratic National Convention. I'm David Domke. Charles Douglas is in Chicago at the Democratic National Convention. Joined us last night on an incredible post-speeches conversation with Ben Trong. And I'm here with Dr. Kiana Scott. She's the founder, the CEO, the president of Kiana Scott Strategies, a strategic consulting organization here in Seattle that does great work with us. It's Common Power. I want to say two things and then get your reactions. One is you wrote a dissertation in 2016 that was about Hillary Clinton and her, and not about her, about the campaign she was running for president. And we thought, because I had the chance to the honor to supervise that, we thought we're writing about the first female president, right?
We sure did.
So that's a history for you.
Yeah.
That's like part of your story. And then last night it was Joe Biden's evening. It clearly was, but it was also Hillary Clinton's night. And it was also these rising stars night. And so I want to go to the latter point first and then come back to Clinton. So last night was a lot of things. Clearly one of them was Hillary Clinton's night. But how would you talk about last night?
Yeah. So first of all, my heart just goes out to whoever was in charge of planning the Democratic National Convention, because oh boy, have they had a couple of weeks to change everything, right? Because this was the Harris-Walz convention. This was not the Biden-Harris convention. I would be really curious to know what had been planned for the opening night of the convention. If this was the Joe Biden reelection campaign. It's not, and it didn't sound like it was. This wasn't a slaps, a new name on the top of the ticket and bring the same schedule along. This was an evening crafted around and built for a crescendo on Thursday with Kamala Harris accepting the Democratic nomination for president. Conventions are interesting because they are part celebration and part business meeting. So you really have three kinds of speeches in conventions. You have the business function. We don't see most of that during prime time, and that's not where national attention is. But that's what a lot of people in the room, those people who were cheering, those people who were standing up, those people who were crying, physically present in the space, they're there for a lot of that. There's the business stuff that they get through. And then there are these really powerful introduction speeches. This is just an incredible platform for rising stars within the Democratic Party, either people who, the planners think have a strong future in national politics, or who are powerful fundraisers who they want to elevate, or who are incredibly telegenic and rhetorically impressive. This is a chance to elevate them and to show the deep, deep bench that the Democratic Party has. That's been a huge theme of this convention, even on night one, is just, holy cannoli, look at the talent we have. This is amazing.
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Well, you were about to say, go
totally.
ahead.
Yeah, you saw that last night with people like AOC, who might not be an expected speaker at the Democratic National Convention as a member of the squad who doesn't always go with the party. She gave a powerful and compelling endorsement of Kamala Harris, a huge cry to action, and really made a no-holds-barred case for Kamala Harris. But she did that in a way that she hasn't always done as part of the party establishment.
Yeah.
She's been on the national stage for a while. There were a lot of folks who are new to the national stage, who had moments to speak last night and who collectively crafted this sort of tapestry of what the Democratic Party offers. So there are the
Yeah.
introduction speeches.
Well,
And
I
then
would
there are
also,
these,
and I would throw
yeah,
Jasmine Crockett in that.
totally. Yeah,
Raphael Warnock,
Representative
right?
Jasmine Crockett from Texas, Raphael Warnock from
Yep.
Georgia, like these incredible folks who are rising in the Democratic Party and who really do signal the future in so many ways. And then you have these legacy speakers who are there with long-standing connections to the Democratic Party, to Democratic constituents and voters, to be celebrated, to celebrate with the people in the room, with the people watching at home. That's your Hillary Clintons, that's your Joe Bidens. Joe Biden was sort of the headliner last night. You know, this was supposed to be the ceremonial passing of the torch. We haven't really heard him talk a lot about Kamala Harris, aside from endorsing her and pushing for her to take the nomination. Last night was the first time that we've really heard a speech from him about Kamala Harris. And it was fine. Hillary Clinton knocked it out of the park. That for me was the speech that's going to linger and that's going to resonate. And it felt, I hope it felt as good for her to give that speech as it did for people to hear that. Because I think that for someone who isn't lauded for her oratorical skills, that was just a tremendous, tremendous piece of public speaking.
And I'm going to ask you, I want to show the clip of that speech last minute from In the Room with Ben Trong and Charles Douglas. This is Ben recording it. I mean, you know, the Common Power has 5 people at the convention, 4 of our leadership, and then, no, I'm sorry, 6 by the end of the week, and 2 of our rising stars. And it's just, like, already last night, it was powerful and potent getting to us. And then they had some of the business stuff during the day. They had some strategic meetings. It was really great. It was a good day for us at Common Power. Let me show this from you're going to see how far back they are too. Okay. At the back of the room.
In community.
In community. But they're in the room, right? They're in the room where it happens.
Absolutely.
I want my grandchildren and their grandchildren to know I was here at this moment, that we were here. Every step of the way. This is our time, America. This is when we stand up. This is when we break through.
That's being in the room for you folks right there.
It's like being at a Taylor Swift concert. That's, I mean, what energy. That's so cool that they're there.
Yeah. And then right at the end, folks, if you're listening to this, you couldn't see it, but if you're watching it, you saw it. Standing next to Ben is Charles Douglas, our ED. And Charles leans over and puts his thumbs up, right? Gives us a thumbs up. We all were moved by that speech and on the community conversation. And I invite everybody to come tonight for starting at 6 o'clock Pacific time, for an hour before the main speeches, and then for a good hour afterwards, at least. We stop, watch the speeches, and then come back. We had an incredible conversation about the moment, about the evening. And we were impacted by Clinton's speech, especially. So I want to ask you, given that you wrote this dissertation, given that you understand the arc that Hillary Clinton walked through in her speech last night, what is the meaning, the deeper, richer meaning? Why are people crying? Why am I crying? Why is it that for Hillary Clinton, this was her moment and it was for America's moment?
Yeah, I mean, that's such a rich question, and there are so many ways to answer it. But the thing that I keep coming back to is that I don't know if it's distinctly American, but I think America loves a near victory. And we love a near, like We like to see the marathon runner who's about to cross the finish line and then notices that someone has fallen down and turns around and helps them across and doesn't get the victory themselves. And that's what this was in so many ways. So many of us felt so certain in 2016. I would 100% put myself in that camp. We thought that Hillary Clinton was going to be elected president, no question. And then she wasn't. And there was this huge, huge sense of grief, of loss, of confusion, of heartache that never really, really went away. And part of that was because it's really hard to watch someone come so close and not succeed. And in some ways, we're watching her succeed right now. It's not the victory she wanted. It's not the victory any of us expected for her in 2016. In an alternate timeline, we would be wrapping up 8 years of President Hillary Clinton, right? This would be the convention at which she would be passing the torch as president to, in an open election, to, you know, the Democratic nominee who she would be working to help elect again as president. That's not where we are. But when we have speeches like that, we get little glimmers of this alternate reality. And I think that's really, really powerful for us. And then she did such an effective job of painting this timeline of progress, placing herself on it, reminding us that so much of this has happened within the lifetimes of people in that room. That Shirley Chisholm ran 40 years ago. That's nothing. That's nothing. That she ran 8 years ago. That's, you know, also nothing. That this is a step in a continuous path. And that it's so exciting and powerful for us to be here. Like, she really locates us in this moment and places this moment in history and hands it firmly over to Kamala Harris. There is no, and this is what I am doing. This is what Kamala is doing. This is why we collectively are going to help her do it. This is our part in this. So I think that the tension between near victory and victory is a big part of it. And I think watching someone so clearly pass the torch is a huge part of it too, and a really healing moment in a lot of ways.
Yeah, that's so good. Thank you. I feel like when Hillary Clinton was giving her speech last night, I said to my wife, Lisa, we were watching, and I said, Clinton's job here clearly is to tell the narrative of the fight for women's progress in America and in politics. And that was her task for the evening and for the convention. And what I am seeing in this campaign, and I'm gonna talk, all of us listening, we'll get to it with Tim Walz when we get to Wednesday, is people are running and blocking for Kamala Harris in a way that nobody did or people didn't do the same way for Hillary Clinton. So yeah. Harris doesn't need to tell that story of that fight because other people are telling it, and it allows her to not have to carry the story plus her own self, right?
Totally.
And so Hillary Clinton told the arc of women come into political leadership in this country, and Harris can just be unburdened by what has been, can just be, right?
She doesn't have to run as the first female presidential nominee. Yep. What a weight off her shoulder. She is holding a whole lot of firsts, and it is not easy to run as the second woman nominated for president. But as you and Charles and I talked about a couple of weeks ago, it's a heck of a lot easier than being the first. Clinton had a monumental task, and she came damn close. Yeah. But yeah, she's really, you're exactly right. I think that's spot on.
And I just swear the Harris campaign keeps making the right decisions. To have her come in early, Harris, last night and welcome everybody, the delegates, and to put her, like, this is my convention, right? My convention. And then the reproductive rights themes all the way through the evening. This is a part of what you're saying. This is Harris's camp. This is Harris Walz ticket. And then to have her in the room, Harris, she wasn't there for Clinton's speech, but then to come after that just allowed her to be like, this is it's everybody's here and I'm part of it. But I don't have to carry the weight. The dude next to her's crying, Tim Walz, right? She doesn't cry and have to fit the stereotype, right? I mean, it's
Yeah.
just all of this.
Yeah.
So I think it was Biden got a chance to go out on his own terms, and God love him, right? To use his language. Like he could talk, he could still be talking as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Like that's like for what the decision he made, he gets the chance to talk and to talk and to talk at 11:30 East Coast time. No problem. Okay.
Totally.
But it was Hillary Clinton's night, in my view, because she told us what was at stake here, and she did it with so much generosity towards everybody.
She also did it with some of the joy that the Harris Walz ticket has really been injecting into this race. And that's a huge part of what she wasn't able to do when she was running herself, because there was so much pressure. You cannot, she wouldn't have been able to be publicly joyful, to bring laughter, to bring humor, to bring as much warmth into her own presidential campaign, because she was having to break so many barriers, so many glass ceilings. She had to demonstrate that women can run for president. Again, Kamala Harris doesn't have to do that. Kamala Harris can come in and bring this very personal ethos to her campaign. And Hillary Clinton seemed relaxed. She seemed happy. I loved her. She had these moments of humor with the audience where she would just relax into it and look like she was enjoying it. And that wasn't something we saw a lot of when she was running for president. We've seen it increasingly over the last couple of years, but we haven't seen her as much. That Hillary Clinton showed up tonight, and that was super fun. That was an in-joke with the audience. I loved that.
Yeah. And we only got a couple of minutes left here, but one of those moments, I think the iconic moment, is when the crowd chanted, "Lock him up, lock him up," because Trump, of course, led his crowds in chanting "lock her up" the whole time in 2016. So 8 years later, she's the one it's not about her. And that smile on her face, that like
the knowing smile, the leaning back, the not cutting it off. She knows how to control a room. She could have started speaking at any point. She let that linger a little bit.
She did. Here's a clip from this morning from MSNBC. Michael Steele is the man on the left, and he was the Republican National Committee chair for a couple of years and some great successes against Obama back in that day. But he has since turned against Trump and is part of a kind of a truth teller in the conservative circles. Here he is on MSNBC this morning with Jen Psaki, who was a Biden. She was the press secretary for the Biden campaign. I mean, presidency. And before that was part of their campaign strategy. Here they are.
But I wanted to ask you, Michael, just about, because you mentioned this earlier.
Yes.
Because there were people chanting in the back there, lock him up.
Yes.
And we don't know what was going through her head. I'd love to know the thought bubble.
It was probably the most rich, ironic moment in political history. You can see it on her face at one point. She was just kind of like getting in the groove of it. And I don't blame her. I mean, you listen to what people said about this woman from the time she was U.S. Senator onward, especially. I mean, there was a lot of Republicans that she's always been the boogeyman for a lot of Republicans for a long time. But this whole idea of locking her up because of crimes she never committed and wrongdoing that she was never involved with. And to have someone who's now sitting there running for president with 34 convictions, yeah, it's a little bit ironic to have that moment unfold. And I watched, immediately went to Twitter to see what the reaction would be. And, Democrats, y'all just need to get a grip, baby. Go with the flow. It's okay if you shout, lock him up, because he gets sentenced in 3 weeks. All right? So, come on, let's understand the moment.
Harrison will...
Stop there. Oh, and you're right. She let herself just be in that moment. And I got like, there's like a paradigm moment that Harris et al. Represents with her joy and her,
Mhm.
that famous phrase of unburdened by what has, right? We can be
Mhm.
who we are. And Clinton exemplified that last night.
Absolutely. She exuded that too, right? You could just feel that coming off of her in waves. She was happy to be there. She was comfortable. She was relaxed. She was again having a good time and soaking it in. And I think that's a tremendous, tremendous shift within how the Democratic Party portrays itself. That's a huge
Mm.
accomplishment, and we're seeing that resonate across not only the traditional umbrella of Democratic voters, but all sorts of other people. We're seeing younger people coming in because of this. We're seeing people who want
But what's the this? What's the this?
the traditional umbrella of Democratic voters. We're seeing, I think, this joy
Okay.
expand the tent and create a welcoming space for people who might not have felt welcomed otherwise, or who might not have seen themselves here.
And Hillary Clinton seems like a person that has been burdened by so much for her entire public life.
Absolutely. And watching her shake that off a little bit, I
Yeah.
mean, I am looking forward to the memes that come out of last night's speech, because I think we do take so much pleasure in seeing these fun little human moments that she doesn't share with us often, has increasingly shared with us over the last couple of years after her run for president. But it's nice to get to know her in this new way.
Yeah, totally. All right. So day one in the books at the Democratic National Convention, some incredible speeches I was going to put it at 2.5 hours last night that went from Alexandria
Mhm.
Ocasio-Cortez's speech through Steve Kerr, the coach of the Golden State
Mhm.
Warriors, through then eventually getting to Crockett and to Warnock and to Raskin, and then Chris Coons, what's he doing in there? And then Joe Biden. We know why Coons is there, because he's, Biden's closest
Yeah.
colleague and so on. But I feel alive, right? I feel alive, and um it's beautiful.
It
So
it feels so good to watch a Democratic National Convention and to be really excited to see who the next speaker is and what they're going to say and what they're going to bring to this conversation, and what we're going to learn about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, and about Doug Emhoff, and about Gwen Walz, and about,
yeah.
these people that we are hopefully elevating to national leadership. That's pretty exciting. This is what conventions should be like. And this speaks in some ways to the really short timeline, right? Because normally this would be old news. We'd have spent months getting to really know these folks, hearing other people speak about them, hearing surrogates. We're doing it all in this really condensed time frame. And ooh, it feels exciting.
Yeah. So everybody, hey, you're listening to this. If you can join us, great. Another second evening tonight, 6 p.m. Pacific time on Zoom. I'll give that information in the email I send out. Then after the speeches, and then tomorrow, Wednesday and Friday, it's 4 p.m. Pacific. That's what I'm going to say. 6 p.m. Pacific time tonight, 6 and 4 p.m. Pacific time to Wednesday and Thursday, because we need more time for those evenings. So Dr. Kiana Scott, thanks so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks, David. Great to see you.
Okay, see ya. Bye.